we're in the dog days of August, and it's kind of, to me, a dog days type story. It's what we did on Tuesday. We talked about the ridiculous assault on David Koch in his death by Bill Maher and on Monday, but that needs no further discussion. But on Tuesday, we talked about Trump as a king, but as a king made by Congress. And it occurred to me, as the story broke about Trump saying that he's ordering all American, it sounded like he was saying, I'm ordering all American companies out of China. Of course, that's not what he said. It was kind of sort of how it was reported. And it's how I took it when I first heard it. And I thought, how on earth does he think he has that power? What he actually said was that they need to start, he ordered them to start thinking about relocating from China elsewhere or even coming home. The thing that struck me as so crazy is later figuring out that he did because of legislation. I don't have the name in front of me, but it was the Emergency Economic Act of some kind. But it was passed by Congress, and it gives the president the power to order companies out of countries and to do all kinds of things that only an imperial president, an emperor, you would think would have that power. And now it doesn't say that that's constitutional. Just because Congress passed a law, sure as heck doesn't mean that it's constitutional and that the president actually has that legitimate power. But who knows what the court would rule? And written into law was Congress handing the president that awesome power. And it just made me think back to, when we started talking about tariffs. And it just occurred to a lot of people, wait a second, how come the president can just wake up one morning and say, gee, I'm slapping a tariff on this country or that country or this much of goods or steel or oats or what have you. And you figure out, oh, well, because Congress handed that power to the president. And, just to say the bottom line here, many of us who have advocated for term limits have advocated for term limits because we don't want individual congressmen to grow enormously powerful. We instead want a Congress that functions, a Congress that is the first institution of government, a Congress that checks the other branches, a Congress that is, as it was designed, closest to the American people instead of the furthest away. And we need term limits. Congress in modern times has just willy-nilly handed away its power left and right to the courts, to the presidency and the executive branch especially. And it seems to me that not only is it just a crime that we keep finding out that when Trump says he has some power that just seems ludicrous, that he's actually right. That's bad enough, but that there has been no action. And maybe if the House passed something, they couldn't get it through the Senate or vice versa, but there's been no action to hem in that presidential power. They fully intend on the left to get rid of Trump and keep all that power in the president's hand. And on the right, they don't want to take on Trump. They want him to have that power. They might be for taking it away if it's a Democrat in. But we need statesmen who actually want to restore some sort of decent balance to where we don't have an emperor as president of the United States. And it's obvious that Congress has not only handed away its power, but it has absolutely no intention of clawing any of that power back.
John Tyler was on our page today by mistake. He was the most veto-y president. He's hated by historians largely because he vetoed more legislation on the basis of its unconstitutionality than any other president in American history, I think.
Yes, I just read a column by Jeff Jacoby
Mhm.
about Tyler. And it's funny because last week I had heard somebody say that Tyler was the best American president, was the greatest president of all. And I wasn't even sure, is he pre-Civil War, is he post, where does he fall, what did he do? I didn't know if he was one of the guys who maybe, lived a month into office and then passed away. And looking into what he did, it does seem that he constantly thwarted his own party's attempt to do things that were unconstitutional, which makes me think there is a heck of an argument for him being the best president. Certainly a heck of an argument for him being a president that maybe we bring back and let's talk a little bit about, because that sort of attitude and action is sorely missing in modern politics. And in fact, I think of Justin Amash and his saying that, the only Republican who's come out and said Trump should be impeached. We ought to at least have the impeachment hearings. And I actually disagree with him on that. I'm not sure that the offenses rise to a level of impeachment. And I also think that just politically, from a more global perspective, it's a huge mistake to do that, because it splits people. It tells people who support Trump that it's not enough that he get defeated in the next election. We've got to just not allow him to do anything. We have to try to remove your president. It has an even more corrosive effect than, I think some of the statements when Obama came in, where people were saying, we hope that he fails. And of course, some of those were explained to be not as mean spirited as they sounded, but that sort of politics is slash and burn. And in a country where you are going to live, and your kids and your grandkids and your relatives and your future is, that's not the politics we need. And so Justin Amash taking that stand is kind of a Tylerin thing to do. And we need more people willing to do that. We hear a whole lot about Democrats encouraging people on the Republican side to break with Trump. We need a lot more people breaking with their party.
Of course, with Tyler, he, in a sense, broke with the Whigs. The joke on the site has been that he was a wino, a Whig in name only. He vetoed the bank, the attempt to revive the Second National Bank, and did so on the grounds not that he wanted or didn't want a bank. It was, he said it was unconstitutional, and that subject almost never comes up.
Yes, he actually voted against, even though he, as I understand it, was against the National Bank. He voted against Jackson taking action against the National Bank because he determined that action to be unconstitutional and a usurpation of power by the presidency. And it's that sort of, we have an attitude now that the president we don't like should be hamstrung in every way imaginable. And the president we like should be able to do anything they want, carte blanche, no matter what. It's a recipe for disaster. And we need a system that says, I don't care whether you're my guy or somebody else's and I can't stand you, the same rules apply. And we limit power, not because every once in a while you get a bad guy. We limit power because the whole history of the world is just replete with example after example of handing too much power to somebody. As Lincoln, I think it was, said, if you want to test a man, give him power. And men and women too don't do so well with it. We need limits on power. Forget about electing the perfect guy, the right guy. Set your rules to be the right rules, whether you've got the right guy in or the wrong guy.